My name's Art Newman, and I'm a family lawyer. I practice in domestic relations, and I've been doing it for 33 years. And what I plan on talking about right now is how a person who is about to go through a divorce should select a lawyer. Now, the first question that you might have is, do I need a lawyer? And the response that I would have to that is, the answer is almost always yes, yes, yes. How many times do you get married? Not very often in your life. And when you have the unfortunate circumstance where your marriage is not going to work out and there is a legal proceeding, it's just like having car insurance. If you want to avoid a calamity and protect yourself, you'll at least see a lawyer and get some advice to get you through the process. Now, once you realize you need a lawyer, the next question is, how do you select a lawyer? And the first thing you need to do is decide that you're going to spend some time doing that. And if you have friends who have been through matrimonial cases, that's a place to start. Another place to start is going and looking on the internet, but, okay, you have to, the best way to select a lawyer is to find the lawyer that's best for you. And that means you may have to spend time and interview 2 or 3 different people. And when you do interview a lawyer, the first thing you want to know is that the lawyer that you're approaching has significant experience practicing in family law. You're not looking to have a banking lawyer or a trust lawyer or a lawyer who does wills who doesn't ever go into a courtroom handle your family law matter. You'd like to know you have an experienced person who appears in front of the judges where your case is going to be filed. So for example, you would ask your lawyer, if you live in Cook County, do you practice in front of the judges who are in the Domestic Relations Division in Cook County? How long have you been practicing and concentrating your practice in family law? What percentage of cases that you handle are related to family law? Typically, what would probably be best for you is to have a lawyer that has at least 10 years experience in family law. And the reason for that is that family law is very complicated. It involves your children's issues, it involves your home issues, it involves sometimes very complex real estate matters. It may involve a business issue involving one of your spouse's business interests that have to be evaluated. So you want somebody who has significant experience, I would suggest at least 10 years, in family law, and then you can feel confident that that person has the type of knowledge and background that you need for your representation. Now, after you find somebody who has experience in family law, what you also want to know is that they're actually in the courtroom. Because there's many lawyers who like to practice family law, but they never see the inside of a courtroom. And the reason that that is an important question is because in order to give you advice, lawyers need to know what the domestic relations family law judges are doing. How long are they granting maintenance for? How do they feel about custody issues? Do these particular judges have a certain slant in the way they look at cases? The more your lawyer has appeared in a courtroom, the more you'll have in terms of knowledge about how these particular judges are deciding cases. The next thing that you want to ask your lawyer is you want to ask them a question about availability. How busy are they right now? You also want to find out whether or not they are going to be the lawyer who's going to appear in each and every court appearance for you, or are they going to send an associate? Now, the problem with the lawyers who rely on associates is that you then get in a situation where you may have an inexperienced person going into court on an important day for you. Or you may be in the courtroom and you had paid your retainer, you had thought that you had hired one person, and then you show up on the day of court and you're there being represented by somebody who you've never met. That can be a very very difficult situation. It could create anxiety. So you want to ask your lawyer, your prospective lawyer, right up front, are you going to be there on each and every court appearance for me? Are you the one I'm going to talk to on the phone? And if he is going to use an associate, you want to know that you're not going to be charged for two people being in the courtroom at the same time, because domestic relations litigation is very expensive. It is it is something where communication is very important, and you don't want something to get lost in communication because you tell an associate something and they don't pass it on to the lawyer who's principally responsible for the case. Another thing that you want to know is whether or not your lawyer has had any problems with in terms of ethics in the past. And you can easily find this out at your own by going to what's called the ARDC website. It's the Attorney Register and Disciplinary Commission, and they have a website where you can look up your lawyer, you can find out when your lawyer started practicing, and you can find out whether or not they have had any ethical problems in the past. And that's something that you really want to focus on, because if you've had a lawyer who's had some problems, that's a lawyer you may want to avoid. The next thing that you want to think about is you want to know that your lawyer is somebody who's going to start the case and finish with you. And you want to know whether or not they've actually tried cases. So you're going to have to ask some questions, of your lawyer. Have you had many trials in domestic relations? If the answer is no, then that could be a red flag for you, because some cases go to trial, and you need somebody who knows the rules of evidence, you need somebody who has actually tried cases, and you need somebody who is going to know, again, what the domestic relations courtrooms are like and what the judges are doing. Then they can give you advice. Now, many people today are hearing the words mediation and collaborative law. And mediation sounds very inviting because it sounds like a very amiable way of resolving your differences. And mediation is something that ought to be pursued. But before you start down the road of mediation, you need to understand, even if you go down that road, that you need your own lawyer. You need your own lawyer who will be able to understand how to write a settlement agreement, and a lawyer who has significant experience and has appeared in all stages of divorce cases, both before the judgment is entered and after, is probably one you're going to need, because writing the agreement is very important to make sure that you get what you think that you are signing up for if you decide to settle a case. And the other thing about mediation is that you cannot have a thought that one lawyer or one mediator is going to represent both of you. You always need your own independent advice in order to decide your case. Your case isn't like anybody else's. Your case is the only one that ever existed in terms of you. And just because your friend got one thing doesn't mean you're going to get it. So you want somebody, you're only going to go through it one time, and you want somebody who's going to advise you and have your best interest at heart. In terms of what's called collaborative law, you need to remember when you select a lawyer, there's a term collaborative law today, that if that lawyer represents you in a collaborative proceeding, that he will not be able to, or she, represent you when the case finally becomes filed in court, and that is a possibility. So the other thing that you need to know is that you want to get a lawyer that isn't just a lawyer that likes to settle cases all the time, but is a lawyer that wants to solve problems. And you want to ask the lawyer at the beginning what his approach is going to be, whether or not your case is one that is going to go to trial, and why it would go to trial. You would want to ask him if he is a lawyer who will conduct settlement conferences. You want to ask the lawyer what his strategy is for the case. You want to ask the lawyer whether or not grounds make a difference. You want to ask the lawyer whether or not he's handled a case in which there's substantial money involved. There's all types of questions you ask, and the more you are inquisitive about your lawyer's background, the better you're going to do. The other thing that is very important when you pick a lawyer is to look at the engagement agreement that they put before you. If the engagement agreement, and that's an agreement that's required by the Supreme Court, a lawyer has to have his contractual relationship in a family law matter in writing, and that written engagement agreement will give you an indication about how the lawyer is going to treat you as a client. If you owe him money, is he going to charge you interest? If you owe him money, is he going to give you a reasonable opportunity to pay him back? Is he going to charge you for traveling to and from court? You need to understand all of those things in the engagement agreement before you select a lawyer, and I would suggest to you any lawyer who's going to charge you interest on the unpaid balance is one that you would have to be very careful of. So those are a few tips, and the last tip that I'll give you is when you go through your divorce, try not to be angry, because if you're not, you'll be rational and you'll be able to decide things without the emotions of the relationship affecting you. And if you do that, you'll be in a position to follow your lawyer's advice and to perhaps come to a good resolution. And remember that the more angry you are and the less rational you are, the more trouble that you might get into. And when you pick a lawyer, you want to make sure that that lawyer is going to approach the case in a way that is solving a problem and at the same time getting the best result for you. You don't need to have your lawyer causing undue anxiety for you by making the case more contentious than it needs to be. So you need to look for a problem-solving approach out of your lawyer, and if you work with your lawyer and you give your lawyer a chance and you follow his or her advice, the chances are things will work out for you. I have been doing family law for 33 years. I do it in Evanston, where I see clients, and I do it in my office in downtown Chicago at 221 North LaSalle. I've been practicing for 33 years. I've had experience in almost every aspect of family law and child custody. I've tried custody cases, I've tried complex financial cases, I've taken multiple cases to the appellate court, I've even gone to the Illinois Supreme Court. I've had experience with cases prior to trial, I've had experience with cases after trial. I've represented many lawyers, and I find that to be a very high compliment because lawyers are very careful as to who they choose to represent them in a matrimonial family law case. I've represented many doctors. I've tried cases with a lot of assets. I've tried cases with a lot at stake, and I've had a very successful record. Now, what I try to do in my approach to a case is I always start off, I want to know what my client's issues are. I want them to tell me as much about their marriage, how long they were married, how many children they have, what the assets are. If my client doesn't know what the assets are, I will go and find out. Once I have that information, I encourage my client to come to a fair resolution. I explain to them, you're not going to prevail on every issue. If you can get the 3 top issues on your list resolved favorably, you're doing well. But don't expect to have every issue go your way, because you have to be willing to compromise in some areas to come to a resolution that is less costly. So the name of the game is to be tenacious, but to be pragmatic, and to keep your client advised as to what the costs are going to be and what the problem is to be solved. Your client is looking for somebody to be rational because this is a difficult time for them. I feel like I provide that. I feel like I try to keep the cost down in a case. I feel like I am able to explain to litigants and spouses what they may be looking at before they go forward. So the most important thing is for people to understand that the courts are not perfect, that settling a case is probably in their best interest if they can. However, if their spouse is being unreasonable, they may have to seek out a judge to decide it. So, in my experience, I find that listening to my client, communicating with my client, always being there for my client, and always being prepared in court, and always being prepared before I meet and have to give advice on a particular case is the best way to go. My name's Art Newman. I'm located in Evanston and Chicago. My office address is 221 North LaSalle, Suite 2300, Chicago, Illinois 60601. My phone number is 312-726-9235. My email address is anewman, N-E-W-M-A-N, the number 1, @ameritech.net. anewman, N-E-W-M-A-N, 1, @ameritech.net. Look forward to meeting you.